Welcome in episode 33 of the Print Fest DFS podcast. My name is Justin Rue, alongside Scott Bandy. We're here to break down the Week 5 Draftkings main slate. Scott, what is going on?
Oh man, this is an interesting slate. Most of the elite teams in the NFL are off the slate this week. We got no Seattle, we got no Rams. They played last night. Obviously, we got no Chiefs, no Bills, no Ravens. So it's definitely an interesting slate, but I think it's shaping up to be pretty fun.
Yeah, I think quarterback is relatively straightforward. Trey Lance down at 5,700, making his starting debut against Arizona in a fast-paced game. Should be a shootout. Jalen Hurts up at 7K. Kyler Murray if you're going up top. You got Dak Prescott up there. Kirk Cousins is in a nice spot. Daniel Jones. So I think quarterback ownership never really gets too crazy. But I think in cash games, I think Trey Lance will probably end up being the highest owned just because he is the cheapest and he offers a ton of rushing upside. We saw that rushing just last week when he played in only a half of the game and had 41 rushing yards. Everyone's going to talk about how he scored 20 points and a half last week. He really was not all that efficient at all. And that he had a massive broken play to Deebo Samuel for like a 70-yard touchdown. So, those broken plays aren't going to happen every week. But I think Trey Lance, they traded up multiple picks to get up to this guy. He is the guy that Kyle Shanahan wanted to go get. I think they're going to design this offense around him. And Arizona is actually really bad against the run. 17% of the rushing plays against Arizona have gained at least 10 yards. So, that's a league high. So this is a defense that really can't stop the run. And I think they're going to design a bunch of runs for Trey Lance. It's what he primarily did in college. The downsides here are that he's not all that cheap. He's 5,700. So he's not all that cheap. He's only 1,300 cheaper than Jalen Hurts, who offers, just massive upside. It has a really nice floor. We'll talk about him in a minute. But I don't see this being a Justin Fields scenario where he just completely bottoms out. I think that the coaching and the offensive system around Trey Lance are a little bit more conducive to not completely bottoming out. What are your thoughts on Trey Lance?
Yeah, there's two things stick out to me with Trey Lance. One is the game environment. Going up against Arizona, we know that Kyler is probably the front runner for league MVP right now, and he's going to show up. San Fran's defense does not look good, so definitely expect Arizona to put some points on the board, which is going to force Shanahan and Lance to hit the gas a little bit and try to keep up. So I don't necessarily think this is going to be a game where they can just prioritize run. I think they're going to have to keep up a little bit. In the 4 games that Arizona's played, they've scored, I think 31 is the lowest amount they've scored this year. So far, they scored like 38, 37, 34, and 31. So that sticks out. Secondly, Kyle Shanahan being the coach of the Niners sticks out to me as well. It's not a Matt Nagy, trying to, shield Justin Fields from the world. He won't let Fields throw. He won't let him run. I don't think that's the case with Shanahan. Shanahan, like you said, they moved up. They salvaged their entire future for this guy.
Yeah.
Shanahan's a smart. He's we perennially talk about him as one of the best play callers in the NFL. So I completely expect him to put Lance in, situations where he can succeed. If we know that, Trey Lance is not that polished as a pocket passer, then I'm sure that Shanahan's well aware of that, and he's going to, try to, set him up for success, whether it's through design runs, RPOs, play action, whatever it might be. But at 5,700, I'm expecting Trey Lance to be the most popular quarterback on the slate because really all the top guys are gone. Russ is off the slate, Lamar, Stafford, Mahomes, Josh Allen. None of them are on the slate. It's really just Kyler, Dak, Hurts, and Lance for the most part. So I think he sets up really well. So I'll just move up all the way at the top. For me, it's Lance or it's Kyler right now. Kyler 8K. It is a steep price tag, but like I said, he is the far and away the best fantasy quarterback on this slate. I think he's arguably the league MVP. This game has a 49 over under. I don't know why people are betting this down. think it opened up at like 52 or 53. So I like the over. And the Cards have a 29 implied team total. So I think it's either the highest or the second highest on the slate. San Fran's allowing the fifth most points to opposing quarterbacks, over 23 points a game. They fail to get pressure at all. I think they get pressure on the quarterback like at the fifth lowest clip in the league, while the Cardinals allow pressure at the fifth lowest clip in the league. So I really expect Kyler to sit back all day. He's going to have 10 seconds every play to throw in the damn pocket. Like, they're not going to get any pressure on him. I think he's just going to pick this defense apart. And he hasn't even been unleashed on the ground. Like, he hasn't really been running that much this year. And I don't know if that's been by design or if it's just, variance. But last year, he averaged 51 rushing yards per game. And this year, we've only gotten 27 per game. To that same token, 8.3 attempts last year to only 5.8 this year. Now, that might be by design. Cardinals and Kingsbury might be trying to have him run less to, prioritize his health a little bit. But if we do see that rushing floor open up a little bit, it's just going to make him even more elite. Like, he literally has like a 22, 23 point stone floor in any given week because of how, elite he is on the ground and through the air right now. So for me, it's Lance or it's Kyler.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm with you on Kyler. He's the most efficient quarterback in the league right now, averaging 9.5 yards per attempt. So, I mean, he's absolutely crushing. He's averaging 29.5 Draftkings points per game. He is 8K, but we do have some value on the slate. If you want to get up to Kyler, I mean, he's an absolute smash. If you're looking for the mid-range, I just want to touch on Jalen Hurts. I mean, so through 8 career starts now for Jalen Hurts, he's 4th all-time in fantasy points. I mean, he's had 23, 41, 27, 17 in a game where he played a half a game where they pulled him at halftime, 29, 22, 25, and 31. So he's averaging 26.5 points per game. I mean, he's an absolute stud. And so he's taken on Carolina, which, they are a decent defense. They just got absolutely shredded by Dallas. To kind of humble them a little bit. But, I mean, they blitz the hell out of everybody. I mean, they blitz 42% of the time. And Hurts against the blitz, he has 410 yards. He has 8.7 yards per attempt. And he has 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. So I think if they start to blitz him as we expect, he's probably going to shred them. And then, Hurts also leads the NFL with 19 scrambles for 150 yards. And Carolina just allowed 35 rushing yards to Dak Prescott, who has a busted leg and doesn't really want to run. And they allowed 35 yards and a touchdown to New Orleans quarterbacks in week 2. So, with them blitzing so much, it kind of leaves the door open for Hurts to kind of scramble out of the back door. And if they don't get home on their blitzes, I mean, it could be a massive rushing day for him. His rushing prop is 44.5 yards, and I took the over on that. So, this year he's averaging 57 rushing yards per game. So that's leading the slate. So he has a massive floor. He's got a really solid ceiling just with the rushing. And I like him a lot at 7K.
Yep, I agree. That rushing floor just makes him a nice play every single week. I don't care about the Panthers. They got exposed last week. I still think they're, a pretty good defense, but for fantasy purposes, as long as Hurts is running, everything that he does through the air is just, an added bonus. He doesn't need to be Patrick Mahomes through the air when he can run like that. Similar to the same thing we're expecting from Trey Lance. Similar to how we used to view Kyler Murray as well. So, yeah, he's always going to be a nice play.
Moving over to running back, all the way up top, we have Derrick Henry. He's all the way up at 9K. If Christian McCaffrey was healthy, he would be the play here, but he's 8,700 and he is doubtful for the game. He practiced limited with that hamstring injury. I'm guessing they're probably going to hold him out. So we're not going to have access to Christian McCaffrey on this slate. So all the way up top, Derrick Henry, the big dog, 9K at home. Or no, sorry, they are on the road taking on Jacksonville, but they have a 26 implied total. They're 4-point favorites. Derrick Henry's averaging 28.1 Draftkings points per game. He's playing 67% of snaps. He's averaging 31.8 touches per game. I mean, this guy is getting absolutely fed. Just, I don't know how we can fade 31 touches against Jacksonville. He's even more involved in the passing game, as we've mentioned the last couple of weeks. I think we've played him like every week he's been on the slate so far this year. He's averaging 3.8 targets per game for a 10.6% target share. I mentioned last week that his career target share is in the range of 6%. So he's bumped it up 4 extra percentage points. That's awesome. And he's averaging 159 yards from scrimmage per game. I don't think we can fade him. Jacksonville, they're only allowing 3.4 yards per carry to opposing running backs, but 25.9 DraftKings points per game. So I can't fade Derrick Henry. What are your thoughts on Henry?
I agree. No McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook is still hampered. I wouldn't be shocked if he was inactive or limited like we saw last week. And with those two and those in that condition, and Derrick Henry getting over 30 touches a game every single week, his rushing prop continues to be out of this world every single week. His involvement in the passing game, Julio's ruled out again. AJ Brown's probably going to play, but Julio's out. Like, I just don't like. He realistically right now should be like 10K on DraftKings, especially with no McCaffrey, Dalvin beat up. Kamara has not been the same. With they've New Orleans has basically just turned Alvin Kamara into Nick Chubb. Like, he's just a between the tackles grinder right now for whatever reason. But yeah, you cannot fade Henry right now. He's just the volume is just unbelievable with this guy. And until he gets hurt or something, like we just have to lean on him every single week until we get McCaffrey back. Another guy that we really like is Ezekiel Elliott at 7K. Dallas, they're 7-point home favorites against the Giants to 52.5 total. There's been a lot of narratives about Zeke this year. I feel like every time you look at Twitter, someone has something to say. But despite all that, Zeke's still playing 75% of the snaps. He's fourth in the league in rushing. He's running for 5.3 yards per carry, which is amazing. He has 10 red zone carries to Pollard's 3. He's running a route on 55% of dropbacks. That's really nice. So like for everything that people want to say about Tony Pollard, like this is still Zeke's backfield. And furthermore, in games when Dallas is playing with a lead, they're really prioritizing the run. 34 carries, only 22 pass attempts last week, and 41 rush attempts, only 26 pass attempts against Philly. Both those games, they led for almost the entirety of the game. And the thing is that they're running the ball so efficiently that why would they stop? I mean, Zeke and Pollard are just completely trucking teams. So it's another game. They're 7-point favorites against a really bad Giants team. If they get out to a lead, look for them to prioritize the run a little more. The Giants do allow 4.6 yards per carry in their 26th DVOA against the run. So I expect Zeke and Pollard to both truck them. So at 7K, like the only thing with Zeke is that we haven't been getting the target volume despite him running a route on more than half of Dak's dropbacks. So if we get any kind of positive regression there, it's just going to be the cherry on top. So Zeke is a really strong play this week.
I echo every single sentiment with Zeke. The game environment is absolutely perfect. It's the second fastest paced game on the slate at home. Massive total, massive favorites. I love Zeke in this spot. He's getting all the stuff inside the 10. He's as good a bet to score a touchdown in this spot as anyone. The Cowboys offensive line is absolutely mowing people over right now. This is the best offensive line in the league. They are back. They're trucking people. I love Zeke at 7K. I'm not fading Zeke. I'm not fading Henry. These two guys are blue chip players. They are in blue chip positions. This is one of the best spots on the slate. 7K. It's just too cheap. He should be at least 7.5, probably in the range of 8K. So I love Zeke here. One of the guys that we need to pay down for in order to pay up for Zeke and Henry is Damian Williams, and he's 5,600. So Dave Montgomery is out. The only other running back here on the Bears is Khalil Herbert, who's a rookie out of Virginia Tech, who I do like, but Damian Williams is the veteran here. I expect Damian Williams to come in here and probably play 70+% of the snaps, get all of the passing down stuff. He might seed something on the goal line. But, taking on the Raiders, they allow 4.6 yards per attempt. They allow 27.7 DraftKings points per game. They're 18th DVOA against the run, and they've allowed 16% of their carries against them to gain 10 plus yards, which is 31st in the league. So they allow a ton of explosive runs. I think Damian Williams still has some juice to him. 5,600 is a little bit too cheap for what I expect to be a 3-down plus goal line back. Goal line, maybe not Herbert's a little bigger than Damian Williams, so they might give the goal line to Herbert if they get down there. But I expect a 3-down roll for Damian Williams. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think Damian Williams is really strong at 5.6K. My favorite thing about this Damian Williams spot is that Matt Nagy just refuses to unleash Justin Fields. It's like he's trying to protect himself by not allowing Fields to run. He's barely throwing the ball at all. He wants to just jam the football between the tackles as much as possible. It's exactly what they did with David Montgomery. I don't think much is going to change. I think the only thing that could make me feel a little bit better about Damian is if they did throw a little bit more, because Damian's really, really solid in the passing game. So, but despite that, what did he see last week? 2 targets after Montgomery went out. I think you could probably expect, hopefully, 4 targets or so. It's hard to know because you just don't know what the passing volume is going to be.
I mean, he had 10 touches when Montgomery went out. That was like end of the third quarter, and he had 10 touches in the fourth quarter. So I expect him to be the guy.
Yeah, I really hope that they do dump off to him a little bit. But the fact of it is that Matt Nagy's going to try to protect Justin Fields and himself as much as possible. So I think Damian Williams is going to have a monster workload here. Another guy that I like is James Robinson, and it really is just for the value. He's 6K this week. I just think he's just too cheap for the volume that he's been seeing with or without Carlos Hyde in there. He played 94% of the snaps last week when Hyde was out. It's all 19 touches. Now, Hyde has been practicing this week, and he's probably going to be back in there. But even in week 3, when Hyde was active, he had 21 touches. He's averaging 4.9 yards per carry this year. He's played the 7th most snaps in the league at running back, which is really surprising to me when I looked at that. He's got a 12.5% target share, which is nice. Now DJ Chark's gone, so who knows if that could, provide a little uptick in his passing game usage. Who knows? But it's also a good matchup. The Titans, their defense is pretty pitiful. They're 24th DVOA against the run. It really just comes down to the price tag with Robinson. He's 6K. I think he should probably be at least 6'6", maybe 6'7". His usage has been really solid. He's a really good player. So at 6K, I just think he's just too cheap.
Yeah, he is. He is too cheap. 73% of the snaps. I'm not really afraid of Carlos Hyde at all. He was out last week, so that kind of aided in James Robinson's numbers last week. But I don't expect Carlos Hyde to play a major role anymore. I mean, Carlos Hyde stinks, and James Robinson, he's a good player. 6K. I like James Robinson a lot. I do just want to touch on Leonard Fournette down at 5,200. If Gio is out, he's going to be really chalky as a massive home favorite against a defense in Miami that's a total sieve. I mean, they've allowed 33.5 DraftKings points per game to opposing backfields. I mean, they have just gotten absolutely bludgeoned on the ground. And, Fournette played 82% of snaps last week with Gio out. So he would be a 3-down plus goal line back at home, massive total, perfect game environment, 5,200. If Gio's out, Fournette's an awesome play. At least I think. I know you don't really like Fournette, just because that backfield has always been such a rotating door of who's going to be their bell cow. But I just think that the tides have kind of turned, and Rojo is kind of done. He can't do anything in pass protection. Tom Brady doesn't trust him. He can't catch the ball. He's a good runner between the tackles, but this is only if Gio is out. If Gio's out, who is questionable, and Arian said that he's good to go, so I doubt he's going to be out unless he trips up the stairs or something like that before the game. But I know Fournette is such a tough play just because of this backfield's history. What are your thoughts on Fournette?
You nailed it there. I've come around on him a little bit. I'm fine with him as a last guy in. Um, but it's just a rotating door. Like Bruce Arians, it's just so hard to know what he's going to do any given week. Like if we came out this week and Rojo had 20 touches, like it would literally just be the same thing we've seen for the last 2 years. Now, the Bruce Arians does seem to absolutely despise Rojo right now, and it makes me a little bit more confident in the play. So I'm fine with him as a last guy in. It's just this backfield is just such a shit show. But yeah, if Gio's in, there's no shot you can play him.
No, no. This is only if Gio's out, just because like he's not going to get any of the pass catching stuff on the long down and distance. But if Gio's out, he's going to get all like the 2 minute drill dump offs, like stuff that's so juicy for fantasy. Yeah, I like Fournette a lot if Gio's out. If he's in, it's kind of hard to play him. Anyone else at running back, or you want to go to wide receiver?
I can touch quickly on DeAndre Swift. He's 6,100. Yes, he busted last week, but the underlying statistics are pretty strong. He is tied with the team lead in targets, 18.6% target share, 7.3 targets a game. It's tied with TJ Hawkinson. He's running around with 65% of dropbacks, it's the third highest clip in the league. He's running 26.5 routes a game. That's second in the league at running back. And they're 10-point dogs against Minnesota with a really solid 49.5 total. That's exactly the scenario that we want to target for DeAndre Swift. We want them coming from behind. We want the dump offs from Jared Goff. I don't care how many touches he gets between the tackles. I want those 7, 8, 9, 10 targets from him. So at 6.1K, I think this is a perfect projected game script with him as 10-point dogs to Minnesota. So I think he's completely fine.
I'm with you. We both played Swift last week. We got a floor game from him, but I'm perfectly fine going back to Swift. I think I prefer James Robinson there. I think, but it's close. It's definitely close between those two. Moving over to wide receiver, let's just kick it off with Keenan Allen. I think he is a lock on this slate. He's averaging 11 targets per game. He has a 28% target share, 0.65 weighted opportunity rating, which is top 10 in the league. So all the opportunities there. He hasn't really been very efficient just because his ADOT is 8.8 this year. So it's a little shorter than what it typically is, but he's just getting peppered with targets. He has 8+ targets in every game. He has at least 7 receptions or 100 yards in all 4 games. So the consistency is right there. 6,500 is a little cheap for Keenan. Typically, we see him in the 7K to 7.2, 7.4 range. I think I saw his prop is like 75.5 receiving yards. Typically for guys that are around 6'5", on DraftKings, I mean, you're going to see their prop around 65, 70 yards. So I think that we're getting a little bit of value here on Keenan Allen. And he's also averaging 2 red zone targets per game. So he's kind of their guys. They get in close, him and Big Mike, now with Hunter Henry out of there. So I think that, taking on Cleveland, it's a pretty middling matchup. I mean, they're decent against wide receivers, but they're also not great. I mean, they rank 13th DVOA. So it's nothing to run away from. Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, awesome offense at home in that awesome stadium at SoFi. So it should be nice, not have to worry about weather or anything like that. Nice game environment. 11 targets per game at 6,500. That's basically the play.
Yeah, I mean, Keenan Allen 6,500. Like, I don't necessarily think he's a lock. I think he's a strong play, though. I don't really believe in this Mike Williams usage that we've been seeing. People are, there's been chatter about him overtaking Keenan Allen as the one, and that's just nonsense to me. It's freaking Keenan Allen. He's one of the best receivers in the league. He's dominant. He's a dominant route runner. 6,500. He's pretty much a lock for 8+ targets every single week. My only concern in this game is I think it might be pretty low scoring. I like the under of 47, I think is what it is right now. I like the under there. I just think the Chargers, it just sets up for what the Browns like to do. Like the Chargers defense just asks you to run against them. And that's exactly what the Browns want to do. And it's 2 good defenses. I think this just could end up being like a 20-17, like slow ball game. But it's Keenan Allen. Like he's still going to get the volume regardless. So completely fine with that. It's just a game environment. It's not my favorite. But at $6,500, like he's a 7K plus receiver every single week, regardless of matchup. I think my favorite receiver on the slate, and it's no surprise really, is Devontae Adams at 8.2K. What is there to say about this guy anymore? Like, he's just an alpha. Coming into this week, he's averaging 11.25 targets a game, second in the league. 36% target percentage, second in the league. 493 air yards, fourth in the league. 0.81 weighted opportunity rating, second in the league. He's only got one touchdown through the first quarter of the season. That's really unusual for Adams, and that screams regression to me. He only has 5 red zone targets. We've seen him get 5 red zone targets in a damn game with Aaron Rodgers. So I think that's going to be a positive regression spot right there. We have to consider this guy every single week. The matchup against the Bengals is nothing to fear. Like, I think it's another game where you're going to get at least 10 targets from Adams. The positive touchdown regression is coming for this guy. Like, him and Rodgers, like, he's going to score 10 touchdowns this year. And I would bet on him to score a touchdown in any given week against any other player for the most part. So 8.2K, yes, he's expensive, but I really like this game to shoot out. I like the over in this game. I like both offenses, both defenses. I don't really respect that much. So I think Adams is in for a really nice game here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love Adams. I mean, he's always the guy. The only thing about this game is it could potentially be slow paced, but with Mixon being potentially out, I expect him to be out with that ankle injury. If he's out, the Bengals are definitely going to be throwing the ball more. We saw the splits with Joe Burrow when Joe Mixon was out. I mean, they started throwing the ball so much more. So that kind of game environment could be nice with that massive total, second highest total on the slate. That kind of leads me into T. Higgins, who's going to be on the other side of this game. He's coming back from it with his shoulder injury. He's been out for the last 2 weeks. He's coming off a long rest now. Now he's been out for basically 2.5 weeks because they had that Thursday night game that he wasn't able to play in. So he should be fully ready to go. I think he's been limited the last couple of days in practice. We're recording this on Friday, so we'll have to look at his practice status. I haven't checked that, but he's projected as one of the best values on the slate. He's 5K, and he's the cheapest out of all these Bengals wide receivers between Chase, Boyd, and Higgins. He's the cheapest one. And when he's out there, he's playing. So far this season, he's played 82% of snaps. He's averaged 7.5 targets per game for a 26.9% target share. 0.62 weight opportunity rating is really solid. And he's the guy, when they get into the red zone, he's their guy. He's averaged 1.5 red zone targets per game. And so far on the season, Green Bay has allowed 100% of their on defense. They've allowed 100% of the drives that go against them to score touchdowns once they get into the red zone. So obviously we expect that to regress a little bit, probably to around the 60 or 70% number. But T. Higgins is their guy when they get in close. And Green Bay's just been dreadful on defense when teams get into the red zone against them. And they are 20th DVOA against the pass. Jair Alexander is probably going to miss this game. So I love T. Higgins at 5K.
Yeah, Jair Alexander is ruled out. He was DNP all week. So he's already ruled out. And T. Higgins, I just checked, he was full go today at practice, so he's going to go as well.
Awesome.
5K is just way too cheap. Like, he was the guy we were targeting when they all three were healthy, because he's the alpha on his team right now. With Jamar Chase as a rookie, I still think that T. Higgins is the best receiver as it currently stands, and now he's the cheapest at 5K, and a matchup against a terrible Green Bay secondary without a top 3 corner in the league. Like, that is just really, really juicy. And with no Mixon, and Mixon was also DNP all week, including today. With no Mixon, they're going to have to fire it up. Unless freaking, what's their coach's name? Zach Taylor, unless he wants to get fired on the spot and jam P. Ryan and Chris Evans 15 to 20 touches each, I expect that Joe Burrow is going to have to see 5-10 more pass attempts in this game. And Green Bay and Rodgers are going to show up. So T. Higgins is a smash play. I'm going to go all the way down to 3K with Curtis Samuel. This is just a clear misprice by DraftKings, in my opinion. Last week he was 3K as well, coming off of the short-term IR stint. He played 39% of the snaps. He saw a 12.1% target share. He only ran 15 routes, but still saw which is really nice. And we know he's there. And I looked into it. Ron Rivera said he failed to say that he re-aggravated anything. He just said they're taking it easy with him. But Samuel was on the practice field today, so my best bet is that Rivera is just taking a cautious approach to make sure he doesn't re-aggravate that injury. So I think he's good to go. And subsequently, Logan Thomas was put on IR, and De'Ami Brown is also unlikely to play with a knee injury. So that really opens up a lot of targets on this offense. It's not a good matchup against New Orleans at all. It's actually probably the worst game environment on the slate, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. But he's 3K, and when he's healthy, this is a $5,500 receiver. I expect him to play more snaps this week, run more routes, probably see a couple more targets. So at 3K, I just think he's really strong. I wouldn't say he's a lock just because of the injury, but he's really, really strong at 3K.
Yeah, he just opens up so much all the way down at 3K. We know that he's a talented player. He played 37% of snaps last week. I expect that to climb to probably over 50% as they kind of ease him back off the groin injury. He still had 4 targets last week. So, with no Logan Thomas, I think it kind of opens things up just a little bit in this offense. I mean, it's a terrible game environment. It's not a great offense at all with Taylor Heineke back there. But, we know how good Curtis Samuel is. 3K, I guess they just forgot to move his price. If he was 4K, he wouldn't be as strong of a play. But 3K, that extra money kind of makes a difference on this slate. I want to touch on Laviska Shenault. So with DJ Chark out with his broken ankle at 4,800, Laviska Shenault taking on Tennessee. It's just cheap here. And we know he's a talented player. He's more of a yards after the catch, kind of like a Deebo Samuel kind of guy with a low ADOT. But last week with DJ Chark missing the majority of that game, getting hurt in the first quarter, he was basically the focal point of this offense. I mean, he caught 6 or 7 targets, had 99 yards. He had a 36.8% target share, which was a season high, and his ADOT in the game was 13.4. So, I think that at 4,800 taking on Tennessee, which allows 9.9 yards per target, they allow 53 DraftKings points per game against them, and they're 25th DVOA. We know how bad this Tennessee defense is. I like Shenault here. He's only averaging 10.1 DraftKings points per game, so if he gets that, it's not really going to get you there. But I think that we can project him for probably 23, 24% of the team's targets. And Lawrence is only going to keep getting better. More games he plays, he's only going to keep getting better. So I think Viska is a nice value at 4,800. I prefer T. Higgins if you have the extra 200. I much prefer T. Higgins, but Shenault is fine if you don't have the money.
Yeah, my favorite thing about this play, 2 favorite things. One, we know Tavon Austin sucks, and he's pretty much just sliding into that wide receiver 2 role with Chark out. Viska predominantly playing in the slot. The second thing I like is how quick this offense moves. I believe they're the fastest paced offense in the league. If not, they're definitely top 5. We saw when Chark went out last week how much Shenault got peppered by Trevor Lawrence. We know he was a good prospect coming out. He's a pretty solid athlete. So yeah, I like to play. I definitely do like T. Higgins more now that we know that he's good to go for this weekend at 5K. If you have the 200, I agree. I much prefer Higgins, but Shenault is a fine play as well.
Anyone else a wide receiver?
Yeah, I'll touch on CeeDee Lamb real quick. He's 6,200. I just think he's really cheap. Way too cheap, actually. Cowboys still have a 29.5 applied total, so I really want pieces from this game. Same way we spoke to Zeke. Amari Cooper's been dealing with the hamstring injury, the same hammy that he hurt last week in that game against Carolina. So he could be hampered. He did not practice Wednesday, but he did return to practice Thursday and Friday. So he's probably going to suit up. Is he going to be limited? Hard to know. But at least, I think for me, boosts Lamb a good bit above Cooper at a similar price tag. And I mean, Lamb has, statistically, it's been the alpha in this offense. He's leading the league in air yards, target share, snaps, and Whopper. And most of all, I don't expect Dalton Schultz to continue being an alpha and leading the team in targets every week. So I think this is a nice time to get back on CeeDee Lamb. Dalton Schultz had 15 targets the last 2 weeks. I do not think that's going to continue. He's barely playing more snaps than Blake Jarwin. I think this is a get right spot for CeeDee Lamb, probably Amari Cooper as well. But at 6.2K, it's going to be a great game environment. I love these Dallas Giants games. They seem like they always shoot out. So I think CeeDee Lamb's really strong.
I'm absolutely with you on CeeDee Lamb. Still averaging 8 targets per game. 23.6% target share compared to Amari Cooper at 19.1. So, he's getting more looks from Dak. This Giants defense allows a 74% catch rate to wide receivers, which is the worst in the league. Still has a nice ADOT at 11.5, so he's not just getting his underneath shit. He's getting some stuff downfield. It's only a matter of time. CeeDee's an absolute stud. Like you mentioned, Dalton Schultz. I bet the under on his prop at 44.5 yards. I just can't see him continue. He's basically splitting routes with Blake Jarwin, almost 50-50, and he's just getting a lot more targets. He's just getting a lot more targets per route run than basically any tight end in the NFL. And I don't think he's an alpha like that. I think that CeeDee Lamb will I think he will command the lion's share of the targets. This week, 6,200, awesome price, great game environment, fast pace, in the dome, all the things. He's an awesome play, 6,200. Moving over to tight end. So with Rob Gronkowski out, we get Cameron Brate at 3,300. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but 3,300 still, in that range of punt tight end, which we love to go after. So with Gronk out last week, Brate played 64% of snaps and ran a route on 31 pass attempts. OJ Howard ran a route on only 15. So he's basically doubling up OJ Howard in terms of passing routes, which is something which, a couple of years ago, we would think, okay, Gronk's out, OJ Howard, he's a total smash. But I don't know what the hell's happened to OJ Howard. He's such a great athlete. He was a first-round pick in the NFL draft. He just has not been able to put it together at all for whatever reason. But Cameron Brate, 3,300. Miami is just a terrible defense for whatever reason. I thought they were going to be good, but they've allowed a 10.7% touchdown rate to opposing tight ends. I mean, with a 29 implied total at home, fast-paced game, no Gronk. I mean, 3,300 is a little cheap for Cameron Brate, who's likely. I think it's very possible he scores a touchdown, and maybe 2 at 3,300. He definitely has. With these cheap tight ends, we always look for touchdown upside. I think that's like the most important thing with these punt tight ends. And I think he has the highest touchdown upside of any tight end that's under 4K easily.
I am totally on board with Cameron Brate. For me, it's just Tom Brady plus tight end equals thumbs up. So we know how much Brady loves his tight ends. They are going to absolutely truck Miami. I think Tampa Bay team total in the first half is a really solid bet. In the second half, they might be up 30. Honestly, I think this is going to be such a blowout. I bet Brady over 2.5 touchdowns already. I absolutely love this game for the entire Tampa offense. Cameron Brate is a good player. We've targeted him in the past in DFS as a punt play, and he's always been pretty nice to us. So I am completely on board there. Another punt guy that I like is Evan Ingram at 3,200. The last 2 weeks, he's had 6 targets in back-to-back games. Shepard and Slayton are probably both going to be out again, both with hamstrings. Both were DNP all week, so that lines up pretty well from a target perspective for Ingram. And it's a nice matchup. Dallas allowing the 8th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. And the game environment, 52.5 total. I like the over in this game. Everything about this game I love. I just want pieces. I love Daniel Jones. I don't remember if you touched on him, but I think he's a really solid play at 6K. But yeah, anytime you have a 3,200 tight end that you can project for 6+ targets in a game that has a 52.5 total, that's just going to be really, really strong. And we know how good of a player Evan Ingram is. So I really like him this week. And the other guy I really like is Ricky Seals-Jones at 2,500. As I mentioned previously, Logan Thomas was put on IR, which makes RSJ the top tight end on this offense. Again, it's a really ugly game environment, but he's min price. and he played 92% of the snaps last week when Logan Thomas left. 92% of the snaps. That is elite. He only saw 4 targets, but again, he's a mid-price tight end playing 90+% of the snaps. I don't care about the game environment. 4 targets for a mid-price tight end is fine. And we know that New Orleans boasts one of the league's best run defenses. And in combination with that, it came out today that Antonio Gibson has a stress fracture in his shin. It could mean that they scale back his workload and just the workload and the rushing volume in general. So this might be a little bit of a pass happier attack from Washington. Heineke's looked good. So that I'm not saying they will or they won't, prioritize the passing game, but it at least optimistically makes RSJ a little bit of a better play as well. But if you're playing Curtis Samuel, I would not play Ricky Seals-Jones in the same lineup. I just would not play 2 punt players from the same game in a terrible game environment. That is just not something that I think is smart for cash games.
I agree. One more thing to touch on Evan Ingram. You mentioned that, we know he's a good player. Are we sure that we know that he's a good player? Because this guy fucking sucks. Like, as far as I can tell, he fucking stinks. I mean, he's averaging like 3.8 yards per target this year. Like, he's been bad for a while. But he still gets peppered with targets. I mean, you mentioned 6 targets per game. I mean, the nice thing is Dallas is pretty bad against opposing tight ends. They allow 8.7 yards per target and 16.5 DraftKings points per game and a 73% catch rate. So that's nice. And so hopefully we get some kind of efficiency from this guy. The nice thing, it's in a dome. We know he's an elite athlete. Or at least we have that. We know he's an elite athlete. We don't know if he's very good at football. Because, I mean, this guy, he's been bad for a couple of years. I thought he was really going to explode. He's had some flashes here and there. But, I mean, I don't know if he's actually any good.
We'll put it this way. He had one of the best rookie tight end seasons ever. And he was, at some point, he was like a 5th or 6th round pick in fantasy. Well, he does suck at staying healthy. And he has not been good with Daniel Jones at the helm at all. So, but at 3,200 regardless, he's a good athlete. He's a fine enough player. And he's 3.2K in the best game environment of the league.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think he's probably the best tight end play on this slate, I think.
It's him and Brate for sure. Him and Brate are neck and neck.
Yeah. The other thing I do want to mention, I just saw the news came out. So Jimmy Garoppolo is out. But George Kittle is doubtful. And so that to me, that really actually hurts Trey Lance a good deal. Because he's an awesome receiver, and obviously he's an awesome receiver, but he's an even better blocker. And so I think that really hurts the hell out of this offense and kind of, it's not going to push me completely off of Lance, I don't think. But I'm going to do some looking and see what I can do. Ross Dwelly is the tight end who's going to slot in. He's 2,700. I don't know. It's just another one of these cheap punt tight ends. But I mean, Ross Dwelly. Yeah, I mean, so on this Evan Ingram thing, I just want to mention one more thing. So in 2017, he averaged 11.3 yards per reception. And then 2018, 12.8. 2019, 10.6. 2020, 10.4. And now all the way down to 6.9. It's only been 2 games. So I kind of expect that to come back. He has too much pedigree. He's in his 5th year. I mean, he's got to get it going. If he doesn't get it going now, his career is going to end pretty quick.
I mean, he's not going to be on the Giants next year for sure. He's going to go somewhere else. So maybe once he leaves this atrocious franchise, that maybe if that in combination with him potentially staying healthy for once in his damn life, which I don't count on, maybe then we'll see a little bit of better production from this guy.
Anything else to touch on before we call it quits?
Yeah, I'll give you my window for the week, and I actually like him even more now that Kittle's doubtful. It is Deebo Samuel at 7,100.
Okay,
I'm just buying in. Like the Cards are allowing the 5th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, over 44 points a game. He's got a 32.3% target percentage, 4th in the league. He has 36.8% of the team's air yards, a 0.74 Whopper, 6th in the league, 0.76 fantasy points per route run, 5th in the league, and Kittle this year as a 22% target share. Last year, he had a 24% target share. Now he's going to be gone. I think that sets up really well for Debo and Brandon Ayuk. For right now, I don't know what the hell is going on with him. I thought he was a great player. He's really good against man and press coverage. Graded out exceptionally well as a rookie in reception perception last year. But for whatever reason, Debo is just the alpha right now. And I think we just ride that wave until we see otherwise. The only thing we don't know is if he's going to be targeted at the same level that Jimmy G targeted him. So that's to be determined. But with no Kittle, I think Debo is a windmill at 7.1K.
I want to touch on one more thing on Evan Ingram before we get out of here. So for his career, he averages 4.3 receptions for 47.5 receiving yards per game. In 8 games against Dallas, so, take it with a grain of salt, but in 8 games against Dallas, he's averaged 5 receptions for 55.4 yards per game. So slightly better production in his career versus Dallas in 8 games. So not a completely tiny sample. Just something else to mention there. If we get 5 for 55 for Evan Ingram at 3.2K, I mean, that's 10.5 DraftKings points without a touchdown. I think that Evan Ingram's a smash. He's a smash. He's a smash. All right. So with that, you have anything else?
You have a windmill?
Do I have a windmill? Man, I really think CeeDee Lamb gets it going here. He had that great first game just because of the volume. I think he gets it going here and just totally smashes. 6,200 is too cheap. I bet the over on his prop at 66.5 receiving yards. I think he smashes this in the dome. Massive total, taking on the piss poor Giants. I love CeeDee. I think it's time. It's time. We know that these year 2 receivers break out at extremely high rates, and he had an awesome rookie year. I think that he's only going to keep getting better. Dak's playing out of his mind. It's in the dome. I love CeeDee. 62 is too cheap. He's too cheap.
Way too cheap.
62 is too cheap. I love it. All right. With that, that's going to do it for episode 30. What did I say? 32. I believe it's 33 of the PrintFest DFS podcast. We'll be back on Monday breaking down our decisions, doing the debrief to see what we got right, what we got wrong. And until then, good luck, everybody.